Hello everyone! As promised over on my Twitch, I've gone ahead and recorded a time-lapse of one of my Skal pages being done, from a sketch to the finished painting. I always start off with roughs being lightboxed on cheap printer paper so I can keep redoing it without feeling like I'm wasting good art materials. I'll also sometimes have a thumbnail made of the rough layout of the page if I need it. I'm still very much trying to figure out where things are going to go and what angles they're going to be in. These two panels of Mashira and Omran will turn out to be my favourites on the page later on. Spoiler alert, I guess. I'm shifting the paper around on the top to move the characters around. I'm not entirely happy with where they're positioned in the panels yet. This is very much the ugly phase. Have mercy. Right, we're comparing the two roughs here without the glare of the lightbox, so I'm just checking if I've missed something or if something's better in the old rough. Alright, we're cracking on with the expensive paper, so clearly I was okay with the state of the rough. The pencil stage is where I gotta be a bit more careful and serious because we're dealing with the proper paper now. I always do the panels first. I'm pretty sure most comic artists do. Maybe? Let's get close and personal. I do seem to start with the eyes on most faces. You might notice how I'm sort of hopping around the page, penciling different angles, sometimes without finishing the last one. It's just how I've come to do it. I can get bored or intimidated by one panel, so I need a break from it and I kind of just move on to the next. Aha! We're getting close up to my two favourite panels now. I just love little drama expressions like that. Still moving around the page and shifting the paper like in the rough stage. Clearly I'm not happy with the final positioning, I'm just always faffing. Wait, what? We're bringing out the ink? But we haven't finished the pencil stage yet. Welcome to how a Skal page is made. Sometimes, in order to keep the momentum up, I will start the next stage without finishing the last one, so that'll kind of spur me on to actually go back and tackle the difficult panels later on. We're starting with the panels themselves being inked first. Nice to have at least one consistent thing in my process. I am using a Nico G pen and a Liter Black 3 ink for this. Oh, heck yes, my favourite panels again. They're just my motivation to keep going when I get tired. We're doing a quick nib clean here. Maybe there was some dog hair stuck in the nib or something? I'm not sure. I'm still constantly moving around and inking different parts of the panel without finishing one thing completely. Especially the hands. The hands are so tricky that I'll do them much later in a lot of cases. You'll see. Anyway, continuing to ink the little tiny Mushira, and still not touching that hand. Hell no. Slowly running out of things to ink. Soon there will be nowhere to hide and I will have to deal with those tricky little pencil bits. But first we're going to erase the pencil to check what else has been missed and needs work. Yeah, you can see that I was really struggling with the top right panel. It's just something that happens sometimes. One particular panel on the page doesn't end up looking the way you had in mind, and you just gotta power through. I also decided to shift the angle of the bottom left panel here a bit, and I went from that very light, rough pencil over to a proper pencil job. I'm not using a light box as a guide. What am I doing? I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest. There's so much more erasing happening and I'm not really helped by a lightbox, so I'm just making it hard for myself. The ink comes out again. Ooh. Maybe I'll finish this stage completely before going over to paint. What do you think? Still not touching the hands? No? Oh well, on to the next stage. It's time to tape this good paper down to a board and prep it for the watercolor. Erasing the pencil behind those newly inked bits. Anyone thought I was going to totally finish the inking stage before going over to a paint? You were incorrect. It's apparently time to paint. It's nice to see that the one constant through this whole process is me doing the panel borders first. Oh wait, never mind. I've just sploshed some of the paint on Mashira's hood there. Okay, back to the borders. In Skal, the panel borders will change depending on where they are, so whenever you see the cloth pieces separating the panels, you can be sure that we're hanging out in the zills. When I'm painting, I try to get the flats down first, so I know what colours go where. So this is what you're seeing right now, a lot of the flat wash is being allowed to dry in between applications. Because I do most of my comics in watercolor, I have to map out where the light goes from the very beginning. So that's why you'll see some places just being left unpainted, like Omran's hair shines, etc. I'm still working around that big empty space where a hand should be. It feels nice to be painting my two favorite panels. It's like slipping on a comfy hoodie and getting to relax before needing to pop outside in the cold. The cold being those damn tricky hands in this scenario. It makes sense, just go with it. So as you've no doubt noticed at this point, I don't finish painting one panel and then move to the next. I will paint the whole page as one big piece. I think a lot of comic artists work this way. I could be wrong though. What do we have here? A hand reference? Is it finally time? Are we finally tackling the most difficult part? And don't forget the fact I hadn't finished inking that small environmental panel too, which also has a little hand in it. Maybe that's what scared me away from finishing it earlier. Erasing the final pencil parts under the fresh ink. This is just me being lazy. Layering begins. We've added paint onto those dried flats from earlier, keeping in mind where the light sources are. Oh, and we're also painting some panel beads, I guess. I didn't actually finish that earlier. This tends to be the most enjoyable stage by far. I love getting to paint a page, especially if there's a bunch of faces on it. You can probably tell through the magic of time-lapse that the very wet layers I work with will sometimes look a lot darker and dramatic in color when I first put them on, but when they're dry they've gotten lighter. This is a normal thing with watercolor, especially if you work as wet as I do in places. You've got to add more layers to get more depth, and yeah, this is one of my main struggles that I'm kind of working on. Oh, it's time for my shiny new opaque white! At time of recording, I only bought this a few weeks ago and I've been loving it. I use opaque white ink for special highlights and Mushira's hair strands, stuff like that. But I've also discovered that it looks really cool when it's allowed to separate a bit in like a glob of water on the paper. This is a discovery that I made after this page was done, so you won't see it here, I'm afraid. Here I'm using it with a dry brush so it's proper chunky and sits on top of the watercolor. And there you go! Let's have a quick phone camera pan over the page itself on my desk. Look at that. Wow. Ooh. Amazing. And here's a scan of it. I hope you enjoyed seeing my process. Thank you to everyone who supports my comics, be it through my Patreon, my site membership, or any other way that you're doing it. Thank you. Have a lovely rest of your time zone.